Hello and welcome to Weird Around Illinois. A lot of people, when looking for cryptids, they seem to assign them an intelligence, like they're almost looking for a human being. Are they right to do this? How smart are these cryptids? Let's find out, and let's get weird. I guess for starters, we should probably define what intelligence is. I mean, everybody has a different idea. We tend to think of humans as like the ultimate pinnacle of animal intelligence. But, you know, what are signs of intelligence? Is it the ability to use tools or set traps, or just the ability to, hide out really well? What do you think makes something intelligent?
Honestly, the first thing that I think of is the ability to simply survive. I mean, if there's clever ways that where you are able to keep surviving in the environment you were born in, that's some good intelligence.
I think that's especially true in really harsh environments. Like up in Alaska or Canada or northern Minnesota.
Yeah, I agree with what he said. Some simple things like grabbing like a door handle in a car, stuff like that. It could be really helpful for hunting. Yeah,
I think there are all these things that people have attributed to cryptids in the past that kind of separate them in a way from the animal kingdom. But before we get into that, we should probably look at intelligence in the animal kingdom. And I looked at the list of the top 10 smartest animals in the world, according to BBC, and there were a few surprises, at least for me, but, the top one was chimpanzees.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we share 97% of our DNA with chimpanzees, so it's not entirely surprising to me. And chimpanzees can use tools. They'll use like sticks to hunt for or to pull ants out of ant holes and things like that. So that one it makes perfect sense. Dolphins were number 2. Again, not terribly surprised there. Dolphins communicate really well with each other, and they hunt in groups and use tactics when they're gathering fish. There's even a particular group of dolphins that has partnered with humans to hunt fish.
Wow.
They will drive the fish into the humans' nets, and then the humans will throw them their share of the fish after they catch them.
Were they just like born that way and they were trained from birth or something?
They learned generation to generation over the years.
Wow.
This group of local fishermen and these dolphins just formed this bond, and they go out regularly on fishing trips together.
Wow, I mean, that's just evolution pretty much.
Yeah. And then of course there's octopuses, which we've been hearing a lot about lately with their alien DNA and their unbelievable intelligence. I think some people would even put them higher on this list now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first animal that I think of when it comes to intelligence. An octopi.
Still don't know if it's octopuses or octopi.
It's octopi when there's multiple.
Okay. Even on BBC they wrote it as octopuses.
Really?
So I didn't know. And I've heard people say it both ways. But yeah, like you, I've always heard it as octopi until very, very recently. So next on the list, I think you know my feelings about this one, but it's dogs.
Oh.
I think that varies greatly with the breed.
Yep. We see on a lot of shows, there are actually some really smart dogs.
Yes,
you
absolutely.
Could definitely use your advantage more of as a human being. But on the other side,
I would put elephants in front of dogs.
There's logic to that. I mean, elephants, they travel thousands of miles to die in the same spot because they know that's their graveyard. They take care of their sick, which is something that a lot of animals don't do.
They use paintbrushes.
Yeah, that's true. They're also very temperamental. They'll, give people a blast of cold water when they least expect it. But, rounding out this list, we've got orangutans, which we kind of expect. Crows and ravens. The African gray parrots. I mean, they're able to copy human speech, so I guess we recognize that as intelligence. And then there's bumblebees. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what criteria they use to come up with these, but these are some examples of really smart animals. So now let's talk about some cryptids and see if we think they're as smart or smarter than these animals. Let's start with Bigfoot.
He's been known for having various ways of, I guess, communication. First off, the first thing I think of is actually wood knocks. That's probably the biggest way, in my opinion, that he is intelligent. Whether it be multiple Bigfoots or for whatever reason that we don't know, is using these wood knocks as some way of communication. It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, and I've heard other things too, howls and whistles and yells, and depending on where the Bigfoot is and what it's trying to signify, it seems to have a very complex language.
Yeah, and it has other ways other than just like whistles and such. It actually has structures. We've seen many times actually of these weird like trees that it doesn't even seem like it's common enough to like be just like lightning striking a tree. It's literally fully formed into like a hut kind of shape.
Right. Yeah, and building those structures, it requires a couple things. I mean, some of the structures are built in such a way that you'd have to have opposable digits to do it, which kind of leads to it being a primate. And then the other thing is that there seems to be some actual thought going into their creation. I mean, some Bigfoot hunters have claimed that structures have always been facing to the 4 points of the compass. Like the entrance to them will either be north, south, east, or west, depending on where it is. A lot of times these structures will mark important things, like they'll be pointing toward water, or they'll be pointing toward a main path or a game trail, something like that.
Sometimes it could just lead to their like main hut where there's more food sources they leave. And I guess food.
Right.
But yeah, and actually one extra thing, Bigfoot has been known for being the hide and seek champion.
Yeah.
And nobody really knows why or how Bigfoot has been escaping everybody's sight for so long.
Yeah.
And how we haven't gotten much evidence in the end.
With all of our technology.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to be, or we would assume that we're ahead, but maybe in secret, Bigfoot is far above us, like 10 steps ahead, and has some modern technology that we don't know of.
Yeah, I'm thinking aside from technology, they could just be really smart. They could just really know like how to get away from people and hide.
That would be true. It's just so hard to imagine.
Yeah.
The measuring stick that I use, and all these things that we name, I think, are reasons why I would put Bigfoot above the animal kingdom. Like any of those 8 or 10 animals that I mentioned. But when comparing his intelligence to humans, I have to think to myself, okay, if I were in the woods and there were teams of people looking for me, how long would I be able to go without being seen on a thermal camera, without being seen by the naked eye, without being caught in a trap, without anybody being able to find conclusive evidence of me? I would not last as long as Bigfoot has. I can promise you that.
No, I would probably be hunted down and killed.
Yeah.
There's no way a human can hide for that long.
Yeah.
I know sometimes Bigfoot seems to like go into the water. You see some tracks and then they just lead to the water.
Right.
That would be really smart if Bigfoot does that.
True.
And would support the big muddy monster.
Yeah, that's true. The big muddy monster loves to go through the water.
The rocks that Bigfoot is known to throw.
That's a good point.
Great like defensive maneuver.
Yeah, that's something, other than like apes throwing poop at each other. I've never really heard of an animal using a projectile weapon like that before.
Yeah.
So I think if Bigfoot is real, and I'll qualify that because I haven't seen a Bigfoot yet. If Bigfoot is real, I think he's very, very high on the intelligence scale. Like in some ways smarter than humans, in other ways approaching the intelligence of humans. So what about Dogman?
Well, he's also really good at hide and seek. The Dogman is known to sometimes just disappear. You just don't know where he goes.
He's another one. People follow his tracks and they just end. Sometimes because he goes through the water, sometimes because he goes into the deep brush where he stops leaving the tracks anymore, or sometimes because he disappears in a mist-filled portal. But it's something different.
Yeah, except I've never actually heard him like disappearing in the mist, although it could be possible. I just heard like Dogman comes out of the mist.
Yeah, I guess I've just always assumed he goes back into it.
Yeah, so I don't know. But Dogman is also known to be really good hunting, like deer and other animals.
And humans occasionally.
Yeah.
He's been seen to be very much a carnivore. Have we had a report of like dogman eating a human of some kind, or like attacking physically? I forgot.
There are stories.
There's some like on the internet.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, the stories that we see on the internet, I don't know, you know, how much we can believe them.
Yeah.
You know, so as you know, there are a lot of dogman sites that just like to tell a good story because it gets their viewership up. But there are some that, you know, they have legitimate witnesses who see these things and encounter these things. And, you know, the one that I always go back to is the one on the confessional, where the hunter was out there with his dogs and the dogman was coming after him and actually killed one of his dogs and maimed the other. And if his dogs hadn't defended him, he was convinced the dogman would have killed him. It was a very believable story, just the way the guy told it. He's either the greatest actor I've ever seen and heard, or he really experienced something in those woods.
Wow. So it's just that far in detail?
Yeah. Yeah, and I heard the story on the podcast, and I saw him redo the story on the movie that the podcaster made about Dogman. And the details matched. The guy's story was spot on both times.
As you mentioned earlier, it's possible Dogman uses portals. That'd be really smart if Dogman is using portals like to hunt, find food.
Yeah, and that would require some level of technology, magic, something above our abilities right now.
Some level of sorcery.
Yes. And, you know, even if it's some natural ability that he was born with, you know, maybe, you know, every time Dogman sneezes, it opens a portal or something. He still had to learn to use that to his advantage, and clearly he has. So, if Dogman is real, where does he rate on your list of intelligence? You think he's, like, a little more intelligent than a normal wolf? You think he's approaching the intelligence of a Bigfoot or a human?
I'd say below a Bigfoot. And the reason why is because I feel like he's way more aggressive and I almost feel like it wants to attack everything. Maybe that's just because of the carnivore kind of idea.
It seems like the Dogman tries to be too obvious, and in turn, sometimes I guess people might try to attack it or something, and in a way it might not be a good idea.
Yeah, so maybe Dogman's just defensively attacking things like Bigfoot does, but he doesn't do as good a job of hiding as Bigfoot does, so he gets in more conflict.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
You know, another cryptid we love to talk about is Mothman. Now, we don't know a ton about Mothman, so it's really hard to, you know, identify how intelligent or unintelligent he is. I have always assumed he was a highly intelligent creature. I mean, if we buy into the idea that he's able to predict these disasters and he shows up before the disasters, I mean, that's an ability that most humans don't have. So that already puts him, you know, way above us in terms of his cognitive ability. He seems to be able to select these sites to appear where he will be around big activity, like at the O'Hare Airport, or downtown Chicago, or all those areas in West Virginia. There were a couple isolated incidents where they saw him on, you know, old abandoned roads and mines and dynamite factories and whatnot, but more often than not they saw him like on a major bridge. And he had the ability and intelligence to show up in those places and disappear just as quickly, and know that he should.
Although he's causing human environments to be much harder, but it seems like he, no matter where he goes, is always just fine.
Yeah.
Once more, going back to the surviving in any environment and almost adapt, it's good at that. So.
Yeah, I mean, even if we were to say that, okay, he can't predict events, he's just the unluckiest cryptid in the world, and he always shows up at places where bridges are about to fall or things are about to explode or whatever, he survives it.
Yeah, no doubt.
I'm wondering, maybe he's not actually intelligent. I'm wondering if maybe he just, like, senses this stuff happens, and maybe there's something natural that goes on where it just shows up automatically. And then maybe, and I'm thinking maybe he might just not be smart because he doesn't do anything once he ends up there. He just kind of stands there.
So it just spawns in like a robot and like, you know, flies by as if it was programmed.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like when vultures show up over a dead or dying body.
Yeah.
You know, he's just drawn to that situation. Maybe he feeds on the energy of chaos or something.
Yeah, because like a lot of humans and animals, at least, they have like specific things that they can do without really thinking.
I guess that's a possibility. Like I said, I've always kind of assigned this intelligence to Mothman because I've always assumed that he's like this, either this benevolent being trying to help us or this architect of disaster who's trying to destroy things. Either one would require a lot of thought, but your possibility is you know, equally feasible.
Now, there are some additional cryptids that we should be mentioning, and one of them is a skinwalker. Now, with a skinwalker, the first thing you need to think about is it's very good at making false personas. That's the way I'll put it. Using like not real voices, fake I guess body shapes. I've heard of a skinwalker make human noises, look like a human, and
look like sound like a specific human sometimes.
Oh yeah.
You know, like sounding like somebody's grandmother or something to try to get them to open the door.
Right, that too. Also screaming, like just like you drive by in a, I guess, open field. That's just a random environment, but then you just randomly hear screaming, and it's almost like it's trying to lure you in there.
I had always assumed that because a skinwalker is basically a human taking the shape of another being, that it would retain the intelligence of the original human. So, you know, I in my mind, a skinwalker is exactly as smart as people.
Yeah.
I guess I kind of apply that logic to the Wendigo as well, because a Wendigo is another creature that was, at least at one point, human. And I think they retain at least some of their human intelligence. I mean, they do go into almost a zombie-like state.
Yeah, or almost possessed.
Yeah. But, you know, they still know how to open doors, you know, which you mentioned was a good, you know, measure of intelligence. They still know where to find people. On some level, they retain a lot of their human memory and knowledge.
Yeah, I'd almost feel like they're more of a barbaric version of a human.
Yeah.
Like mentally. Not physically, but...
Some could argue that they know how to turn people into a Wendigo, too.
Right.
By paralyzing them. Is that intelligence? I don't know.
If they're doing it strategically, if they want to create more Wendigos and they choose to do that to somebody, then I think, yeah, it is intelligence.
Yeah. Abilities that contribute to killing their prey. That's always good for their environment.
Yeah. You know, Loch Ness Monster and all the sea monsters, I pretty much attribute animal intelligence to them. I don't think they're particularly smart, although, you know, they're as good at hiding as Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Are there any other cryptids you guys have strong feelings about?
No, those were the main ones.
Yeah.
Well, I guess our conclusion here is that most of the cryptids we know are probably smarter than animals, and a couple might even approach the intelligence of humans. One of them might even surpass the intelligence of humans. So we'd love to know your thoughts on it, and any evidence you have to change our minds on the assumptions and decisions we've made about the intelligence of cryptids. As always, thanks for listening, and thanks for subscribing.